Hello, this is Alvaro San Martin from the Homeschooling Global Summit 2020. And I'm here today with Vince Yu. Welcome, Vince.
Thanks for having me.
Vince is the co-founder of the consultancy, the games consultancy called Press Start Hong Kong. All right, Vince? And he's going to talk to us today about what they do and how they use games to help people learn in a different way. So I'm curious, Vince, tell us what is this about?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, Press Start Hong Kong is a games consultancy. So, the simple description is we make things fun. And I guess, things are, span a wide variety of different areas, right? So we work with, corporate HR functions, we work with marketing, we work with, sort of staff recruitment and talent development and various sort of verticals like that on the corporate side. And we also do a lot of stuff in education as well. So yeah, we just launched in December Press Start Academy, which is our after-school education arm. So there we design learning experiences and curriculum where all learning takes place via playing games. So that's in a nutshell, that's what we do.
That's super different from many businesses out there. Why did it happen? How did you start it?
Yeah, to be honest, like we kind of stumbled upon this, right? All the buzzwords in startups that you hear in terms of like pivoting and figuring it out along the way, like that's us, like we embody that, right? So my co-founder and I, we met in high school, and I grew up playing games and he grew up playing games, but we're not the sort of like the hardcore sort of gamer type people. We like thinking about games. And so, this was always something that was quite interesting to us. And, he's also from Hong Kong. And when he sort of moved back, he brought back like a suitcase of board games with him that he had been, playing with his friends in New York. And we started out just wanting to do like social events. We really just wanted to get together a group of people for us to play with. But all of a sudden, more and more people started coming to the social events that we would used to hold, and people started asking if we would hold such events for their work, for their teams, or for their friends, in sort of like personal sort of team building, like different capacities like that. So at the beginning, we started like hopping around different venues and started thinking about, hey, how can we actually deliver more of this? Keeping in mind that this was like a side project at the time, right? I was working in consulting and he was working in finance. And then we decided like on a whim to like rent a venue, like just to get a space like for ourselves here in Hong Kong. And literally we went into it sort of doing the math and saying, if we do not get a single piece of business over the next 2 years, which was like how long the lease was, this is how much we're going to lose in terms of like rent. This is how much we're going to lose in terms of renovation. And like, hey, we'll have like a man cave for us to play games for 2 years. So all in all, like it was something that was, it was bearable. And so we decided to do it. And once you have a space, we didn't want it to go to waste. So we started hustling a lot. We started doing a lot of events. We started doing a lot of things. And I guess, we were in a pretty good location in Hong Kong, right? And so, people of different walks of life would used to come to a lot of our events, and, we would start to have people that would work in various functions in corporates or teachers. And they would see for the first time, like a lot of like these games, right, that, are not as sort of well known, and they would be open to these new things that games can bring. And they would come to us with like new project ideas and, hey, have you ever thought about using games in the classroom? Have you ever thought about, gamifying like learning and development and stuff? And, these were all areas that we were interested in, right? And so as these opportunities started coming our way, the good thing was that I do have like that consulting background. So there is a lot of parallels actually. I'm happy to, you know, talk a bit more about sort of those aspects. But, you know, as those projects came along, we were like, this is actually kind of cool. And not many people are doing like similar things in this space. So yeah, just decided to go at it.
Nice. I was thinking about the academy, because you said that the educational arm of Press Start is the academy that is focused on after school activities that basically can help kids develop certain skills.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what are you offering to them, and who are your current clients or current like participants of these games, and how is the size of it? I mean, how is a typical activity that you organize at this pace, so the audience can get a feeling of it? Sure.
So multiple parts to the question, right? In terms of like what we're trying to do, right? Our focus, our vision is exactly where all learning takes place via playing games. And so, you know, we do a lot of stuff around like exploring what gamification means and what it should mean, what it can mean. And to us, the traditional meaning of gamification is the use of game-like concepts in non-game contexts, right? So you will find that, you know, a lot of things that have gamification applied to them are traditionally not things that are associated with being fun. So the example I like to use is, you know, not a lot of people would just go and play like an Air Miles loyalty program, for example, if there was nothing to redeem, right? Because that process in itself is not inherently super fun. Now, for us, what we are interested in and what we think gamification can and should be is actually quite simple. Build something fun, build fun first, then build everything else later. Now, build fun first, you know, the fun first component is where the learner or the students or whatever participant in our experiences, we want them to think that this is fun first. And why this is sort of compelling to us is that, you know, if something is fun, then sort of by connection, it is also engaging, it is interactive, it's hands-on, and most importantly, it is replayable, which means that just sort of solely by virtue of it being fun, you want to go back to it multiple times. And so when an experience is designed to be replayable and deep and compelling in that way, then naturally, someone who goes through an experience multiple times with different outcomes, they will get something out of that process, right? Traditionally speaking, most people associate games with a lot of the soft skills learning, right? It makes sense, right? Especially in a board game setting, analog games, where we are talking about teamwork and you know, communication, and you know, critical thinking, creativity, all those things, right? So that is definitely one aspect that we want to focus on, and we are working a lot on, you know, developing the assessment and the research on how to sort of systematize that sort of evaluation and assessment, if you will. Now on the other side, which is something that not a lot of people are talking about, is using games as a way to deliver sort of academic skills or sort of hard topics. And, you know, the easiest example that I can give is SimCity. I'm sure you've played SimCity before, or at least have heard of it. And why I like to use this example is because I've not met a single person who has played SimCity to learn urban planning. But I have met a lot of architects and urban planners who have gotten into that career because they played SimCity, right? Because you have a game environment that is so compelling, that drives you to want to go deep, not for the sole purpose of wanting to learn about the topic, but for the sole purpose of, hey, this is fun, and I want to build a cool city, right? At the core of it, that's what sort of drives you to spend more time on the game. But in order to build a cool city, you need to learn how utilities work, you need to learn waste management and power and traffic and all of those things. So by the end, you know, by as a byproduct of building a cool city that you like, you are all of a sudden, you sort of know some of these concepts. Obviously, games being a sort of simulation or a simplified version of reality, it's not the entire picture, but it is a great way to get someone introduced to a topic, and also to get them to sort of develop their interest and their expertise in said topic. And so, I'm sort of mentioning these two sides because this is what drives us at Press Start Academy. We are designing learning experiences that, of course, do focus on the soft side, but we want to unlock the potential of games as a platform to be able to deliver all of these cool and so far mostly neglected things that games can actually do. So I guess that's the long-ish answer, right? In terms of the, like, what an activity would look like, for example, we have programs across many different spectrums, right? So this summer we have programs on creative writing, creative storytelling, sustainability, and also urban planning. And all of those programs are going to be like quite different. And some of them, like the creative writing ones, we have repurposed existing games and added our own elements to it, and also added in sort of writing elements where the kids have to create their own components, for example. So they bring like a part of themselves and their own creation to the game, and then they play through it, and whatever happens throughout the game, they will write about it, right? So it becomes, we call those play and write experiences, because you can't play if you don't write, but you can't write if you don't play, because it sort of folds in on itself. So that's an example. And no, I can go on and on. So yeah.
It makes sense. And from the point of view of the business side, what's kind of the products that you offer to participants? And also, I'm pretty sure that you're working probably with schools or with organizations. We are in the audience, we're going to have quite a lot of people that are homeschooling or unschooling or world schooling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to understand who can participate and what's also the target audience that you generally have in your.
So yeah, I think that's something that we're constantly thinking about, and it's interesting, speaking to an audience that are sort of more passionate about sort of like homeschooling and more learner-centric like models, right? And what we do, student-centric experiences is basically everything that we do. And we work with schools. This summer, we're working with a number of international schools here in Hong Kong as part of their summer camps. There, we're doing some game design programs and also like entrepreneurship programs and things like that. So, as you can see, like the subjects and the topics are really quite diverse. In terms of like our target audience, I think, we definitely resonate with like a lot of parents and teachers who place a lot of focus on what the student experience is like. So our classes are generally quite small, and we are very focused on projects. Now, these projects can be the form of, like in the case of an entrepreneurship class, where they're playing a game to sort of learn about like the entrepreneurship experience, and then they're going to apply those things into creating their own business, like business idea. In the case of like game design, they are playing through different games, learning about game systems, game mechanics, and then they're going to create their own sort of game design document, and so on and so forth, right? So there's always going to be a deliverable. And what sort of, at least in Hong Kong, what we see a lot is, people associate games with like play groups. Like, oh, you're going there to have fun. You're going there to, practice being social in a group of people. And I think, there is definitely a place for that, but I think it's definitely shortchanging what games can do. And so if we turn a game into a project, right, looking at it from a very philosophical angle, one of my favorite quotes is by Sid Meier, who is the designer of the Civilization computer game series. And he says that a game is a series of meaningful choices. And so if you think about it, right, a game is a system. It is a system of interrelated parts, and it just depends sort of what the parts are and how they interact with each other. And this you can apply down to like a super specific level where it's like one specific subject or one specific module within a subject where you can use a game to sort of learn. But sort of going like on the opposite extreme, you can use games as a way to think about systems in general. So a lot of times when we do our game design courses, it is about teaching and exploring and introducing different game mechanics like dice rolling and card drafting and things like that. But also getting kids to think about like real world systems and how they can leverage a game environment to test out different concepts and to test their understanding of existing systems. And so, as you can see, we go like, the spectrum is quite wide. And I think that's the beauty of it because, you know, it's just there as a system and you can really do whatever you want with it.
So I understand that you then also work not only with the participants of the, like the children or the adults that are learning a skill through games, but you also train the trainers, right? You train teachers to incorporate gaming into their activities. That's pretty cool because that's also, I guess, not just limiting your reach to you, but training others to incorporate games in their lives. That's very powerful. I was going to ask you how. You live in Hong Kong. I think you have been born and raised there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I was raised here, yes.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about the education system in Hong Kong and how much playing and did you get at school versus what you're doing, right? Because you have a very good perspective on, okay, this was the system, this is what's valued in the education system in Hong Kong. And I would like the audience to also understand what is important there and what are the elements of playing that you experience and you did not experience in the system, right?
Yeah, so I think about this a lot because, you know, I think about education and innovation and education systems a lot. I went through both the international school system and also the public local school system here in Hong Kong, and also went to boarding school in the States. So, you know, I've seen a couple of different things. For sure, in the local public system, there's not as much playing at all. There's not much creative freedom. And I think that is sort of in the process of some evolution right now. I think I would be doing a disservice to the education system here if I said that, you know, what is happening now is 100% similar, the same as you know what I went through back in the day, right? But at the core of it, I think there's a lot of like big classes, lecture style, and things like that, right? I was fortunate enough to go to a school that had like a small playground and also like a small basketball court and things like that. So there would be sort of activities like after school to, you know, for us to sort of participate in and so on. But you know, to the extent where, you know, play is integrated as a core component of the curriculum, it's not really quite there yet. There's more and more project-based learning things that are being introduced. In fact, you know, we are working with a lot of schools to be able to push through some of those innovations as well. I think a lot of the playing that I grew up on was at home. You know, I enjoyed playing games. I had a lot of just time to like think up like crazy scenarios, and I think, you know, building with Legos and also you know, being able to create stories in my head and sort of role play them like sort of everywhere I went, like that was actually kind of cool. And I was fortunate enough to have parents who would not just sort of see that and just be like, hey, what are you doing with your time? And actually like play along with it, or at least encourage that creativity, right? And so that became like a good sort of learning environment. And yeah, I guess it just sort of went from there, right? And you know, that's why the more the sort of different learning systems that I'm seeing, the more different classroom like teaching styles that I'm seeing, I see a lot of different parallels. Obviously, there are a lot of like differences and contrasts between the different systems, but yeah, that it's been quite interesting to see how, especially here, the local system has been evolving, and yeah, happy to be playing a small part in that.
And in terms of moving forward, right? How do you see Fresh Start, in this case, the academy? If things go well, if kind of your dreams come true, what do you imagine in a few years that Fresh Start Academy could be doing in Hong Kong and abroad?
Sure. So it's funny that you asked this question now, because if you had asked me like 4 or 5 months ago, my answer would have been different. And I think that's purely because of COVID. And I think that's been a challenge to how I've like seen the growth prospect of Fresh Start Academy, because we focus a lot on analog game experiences and board games and card games and like just sort of physical like classroom experiences, right? And so I've always believed in that. I've always wanted to build the business around that concept. And my original sort of vision for this was really just like step by step, right? Build out program by program, work with schools, get more students in. Hey, if I reach sort of critical mass here, then maybe I'll open up another center here in Hong Kong. And if that sort of goes well, then hey, maybe I'll do something in Shanghai, maybe I'll do something in Tokyo and in Singapore, and so on and so forth. But it was right around February when I was starting to think about Easter programs, and right when like the virus really started taking hold, that there were a couple of partners that I've been working with on the marketing side who asked me if we could offer any online programs, because that's what parents were asking. And we started it like Fresh Start Academy, like our first programs were in December 2019, like literally 7 months ago, right? And of course, at that point, I was like, no, I'm not going to do online programs. Are you kidding me? But they asked me a couple times, and I was like, you know what, like, even if this is just an experiment, I'm just going to do it anyway, just to test as an experiment. And initially, it took a while for me to sort of get in the rhythm of how do I port sort of learning, like analog learning experiences into an online setting, because that just sort of goes against my whole value system, right? Mm-hmm. But then you start figuring out that the analog learning experiences that is about what you take away from the experience. It's about the learning objectives. It's about what the student comes away from your program with. And if you can try to facilitate that learning experiences as much as you can, even if it's via online means, then you're still achieving the same result. Now, obviously, I'm not saying all of a sudden let's move to Minecraft or like let's move to like MMORPGs or anything like that. But there are ways, like what we did with like a Dungeons and Dragons storytelling campaign is there is an online tool that is like a virtual tabletop where I had like a dungeon master as an instructor, and they would set up like different characters and the whole storyboard on this virtual tabletop, and then all the kids would be dialing in as players. So it would be like us sitting together, like sort of at a table, except this table we were just looking at the screen. So in that sort of purest form of everybody working together and sort of collaborating, that's what the spirit of Dungeons and Dragons is about. And we were able to replicate that in an online setting. So it was great. Like, it was fantastic. So, going back to your question in terms of like going forward, right? I think starting to do stuff online has made me think about, a larger potential reach. And we have since, like just last month, done programs with schools in Singapore and also in Beijing. And that's been quite exciting because, hey, who knew that you can do a game design program remotely with 13 kids in Singapore dialing in from Singapore? They would be able to design something like as good, if not better, than if you were doing something in person, right? And so yeah, in a few years' time, obviously, I want to focus more on home base and build out like a larger team to develop more curriculum and work, more, as I said, on the assessment and research side. But with this online model, sort of not proving to be a mistake, I won't say being a success, but definitely not proving to be a mistake, then I think there's a lot of opportunity to sort of reach students and parents and whoever outside of Hong Kong, and that's pretty exciting. So this actually comes at a great time, because if I'm speaking to anyone who resonates with this and who's interested, I would love to sort of explore what can be done and just try some stuff.
In my next question, it was going to be about that in terms of COVID. You have talked a little bit of how that has changed the perspective. But I would also like to understand how this situation has affected your market, and who are the parts of your customer base that kind of lowered down, and which new ones appeared? Because I'm sure what you said about these programs of Singapore or Beijing coming in. I would like to understand how that transition happened, and and what's the new reality in terms of market for you?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I don't necessarily think I have the best answer that you're looking for, simply because we only started Press Start Academy in December 2019. And so us growing is just us growing, right? I wouldn't say there are parts of the market that sort of dropped off or anything like that, because we had a small market to begin with. That's the cold hard truth, right? And so it was more about adapting to new sort of blended learning styles and also distance learning and things like that, as a way to stay relevant, really, because it wouldn't have made sense at the beginning, at the early stage of our growth, like the first 2 months, to just be like, hey, we're not doing online, and we're just going to wait it out until the summer, and hopefully something like things get better, right? And so I guess that was part of that decision, like the decision-making process, which was, hey, if we don't go online, then like, when are we going to wait until? So we were sort of like, I sort of used that to force myself to be like, okay, we need to try to figure this out. So yeah, I mean, that's the reality of that, right? And I would actually say our market base has grown because of COVID, because people are now sort of opening it up to, obviously if they resonate with the learning through play sort of vision, now they're sort of opening up to actually you can replicate sort of analog experiences online. And that's actually pretty cool. And we've actually also been helping like a number of schools transition online, and also think about how they can work through their curriculum and make it more engaging, and learning from games and game design principles to make their online classes more engaging. And I think that's been also really rewarding for us too.
I was thinking of the parents and the educators watching this video. And I would like them to understand, from someone that lives and breathes games, and it's your daily activity. I would like them to get from this conversation something tangible that they could use, or at least some pointers on directions of where the educational games trends or world is going towards.
Sure.
So I was going to ask you about looking forward, looking at the future. What are the main elements or trends that you see are going to be for sure present in the in games, in the educational games industry?
Yeah. I've been long-winded the entire interview, so I'm going to be long-winded again, because I think it helps set the stage a little bit. There's an argument to be had where, what is the point of education, right? I think a lot of people see it as, preparing kids for the future. whether it's for the job market or just as like to learn and pick up more skills, just to be a more wholesome person. A lot of that is really seeing what education equips you for. And so I guess we are blessed by the fact that we do have a lot of work with corporates. So we sort of see what companies are starting to hire for, right? We often hear this and we often read this about like, fourth industrial revolution and blah, blah, blah. And sort of how that changes how companies are hiring, what skills are important. And we see that as we are helping companies revamp their hiring processes. And so at the end of the day, we are looking for the kids to become more autonomous, to be more self-driven, to be more creative, to be more critical in terms of how they think. And all of those things are what games excel at, right? If you want to foster an environment where a student can develop those skills and be able to be confident practicing those skills, then you want to build a game-like environment for them to do that, right? If you want to sort of set up learning behaviors in a way that this is, students build healthy learning habits, and these skills are usable and relevant in schools, then you probably set up a gamified environment to compel them to do that. And so when we see sort of learning through play, learning through games, it is not just, hey, this is fun, do it, but like there are a lot of like pretty interesting sort of bigger picture like byproducts where it's not just about the games, it's about the environments, it's about how the learning takes place. It is about designing learner-centric experiences. At the end of it, like you want to design something fun, you have to make sure who you're designing it for, because if you know that they're not going to enjoy it, then it's not going to be fun for them. So a lot of that, there are a lot of like interchangeable, like universal concepts. And I nerd out about this stuff a lot. And like I think about it a lot because I think it's super fascinating. There are a lot of things, a lot of parallels to draw all across the board. But that's how I see it.
I was gonna close this interview asking you about the immediate future. We have talked about more of the long-term view, yeah, and where you're heading and where is the educational games world going. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to also share with the audience what's your short-term success goal that you're trying to reach, and how could the world help you?
Well, yeah. So short-term success goal, I think, for me is quite simple. I'm looking to keep building the team for the next year or so, and I have a couple of sort of key areas that I want to develop. Definitely on the curriculum side. So starting to explore a lot of academic standards and things like that. I don't want this to just be like an extracurricular activity. I want this to mean something. I want this to deliver tangible results and benefits to academic lives, for this to really matter, right? I also want to develop more thought leadership in terms of like the research, the assessment piece. How do we actually anchor the results from this sort of learning through play process to actual, whole person development things, and also academic results aspects, right? And before COVID, I had this idea of trying to expand the team and like do some fundraising, second half of the year. Who knows what the economy is like? So that's still something that is that I want to sort of embark on. How the world can help, honestly, yeah, I don't want to. I mean, obviously, if I get to I can work with more schools and work with more parents and deliver more courses and have our instructors show off the awesome work that sort of they're creating to more students around the world, then that's great. But I think, the most important thing for me, like, I guess the main challenge for me is I always play the evangelism role for learning through play. I think into the short term, there's still a lot of, I wouldn't say stigma at this stage, but there's still some hesitation on what sort of play and games can do within an educational setting. And so, I would love for sort of everyone to open their minds up to, hey, having fun can be productive. I think just getting over that obstacle, getting over that barrier, actually makes a lot of things possible, even for like parents at home. And it's really a game changer.
I was going to ask you if there is any current game or activity that homeschoolers and people that are watching this video could very easily, as you're doing things online right now, if there is anything that they could test and try of what you're doing, so you can maybe even have a new audience on that front. Is there any game that comes to mind that you have been developing or you have tried already that would be interesting for them?
Yeah, so actually, again, this is great timing because I am in the middle of doing a series, like a partnership with Yahoo, actually here in Hong Kong. Surprisingly, a lot of people in Hong Kong still use Yahoo. And, I'm doing a series with them, which is for kids and for families because we really haven't had a lockdown here in Hong Kong, but, for all intents and purposes, like for the lockdown period where, a lot of families are staying at home and learning with their kids and things like that. So we have been developing mini games to teach specific skills in 15-minute videos. This is all in Cantonese, but if there's enough interest, I'm happy to sort of record like a short walkthrough in English, because what we also do is we make those materials for like the mini games available on our website as well. So people can sort of go online after they watch my video with Yahoo to go online and download those materials and print them and play them and just sort of develop different skills. So we've had the third episode is coming out this Friday at the time of recording. And we've had a module on game design. We've had a module on entrepreneurship. This week's video is going to be on storytelling. And then the episode after that is going to be on design thinking. And so, yeah, it's just a series of mini games that are super, super simple, I would love for you guys to try out as well. So, yeah, happy to include some of those instructions and things like that if anybody's interested.
That's actually something that people watching this video can add into the comments if you're interested in exploring this, and we will send it to Vince, and if there is enough interest, I think this will be a great next step.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your time, Vince. This has been really a real pleasure for me. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
I wish you the best of luck. I think it's a very, very useful part and important part of the learning experience. And I think many times the focus is not there. The focus is in the content, or the focus is in different aspects of the learning experience. But I've also witnessed how powerful games and learning games are. And that's the reason why I wanted you to talk about this in the summit. So thank you very much for your time, and best of luck.
Thanks.